The truth is, most podcast content strategies do not convert to high ticket sales, but most high ticket coaches and consultants don't know why. In this video, you will learn the biggest mistake that you are making if your podcast is not attracting your ideal high-ticket client, and what you can do instead to drastically improve your chances of attracting leads who buy. If you're an expert looking for the best advice on how to grow your podcast audience, subscribe to my channel and hit the bell to be notified whenever I post a new video. Is Deidre Shen, the CEO and co-founder of Capsho, the world's first AI-generated or AI-powered podcast copywriter. And I've been working with experts who cumulatively have banked over $1.6 million in sales. I mean, myself, I did over $200,000 in just my first year podcasting, because I stumbled on this little known secret. So let's get into exactly how you can use a podcast to magnetize your high ticket clients who buy. The content that you are putting out there is what you are ultimately going to become known for, right? Which means that if you want to work with the right high ticket clients, this is actually what we need to work on first. We actually need to work on your content and how you're actually elevating it. So how do you come up with the content for your podcast and social media that attracts the right leads, the right buyers, the right clients, who we call your level 10 client? And I call it the content bridge. So just really quickly, I'll talk you through the strategy, and please jump in, Bono, with any examples as I go through this. So let's first imagine a bridge. So your ideal high ticket client, right, your dreamiest buyers, they are all on this bridge, and they're trying to get from where they are now, so point A, or one end of the bridge, to the other end, point B, right? That's the other side. And on that other side, because once they reach point B, that's their promised land. That's the big result. That's the big thing that you are promising them, right? Yes. And you, as their coach, as their consultant, you're going to help them get there. That's the purpose of this bridge. And along this bridge, there's going to be different markers along there. And I call it 10 because, you know, if you can imagine, on this bridge, there are 10 markers. Your level 10 client is right at pretty much almost at the end, and your level 1 client is right at the beginning. So what I want us to consider is, what if we just had one ideal client and they just happen to be at different stages on this bridge at those different markers, right? So as I said, there's those 10 markers from level 1 to level 10. And all the people who are on that bridge, they are actually all your ideal clients, right?
It's a really important point.
And if they are at the first marker, they're your level 1. So they're at the beginner stage for you.
Yeah.
If they're at the level 10, they're your dream client, right? And then there's everything in between, 2 to 9. Now, everyone who is on this bridge, they are all of them are aspiring to be at the level 10, so much closer to that point B, to that promised land, to that end result, right? No matter if they're currently at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, wherever they are, they all want to be at level 10 and just that much closer to the promised land.
Yes.
And, you know, it doesn't matter if they've just started their journey and they've just had this epiphany, or they've already been on this journey. What sets them apart is that everyone who is on this bridge is the same type of person. Okay, so this is really important, because this did my head in when I was trying to work this out the first time, right?
Yes.
Because we all default to demographics, or like the easy things that we can anchor in. And that's actually not what we're talking about, because we're talking about almost like psychographically how do we determine this one ideal client, and it doesn't matter where they are in their journey along this bridge, but they all think and behave and have the same attitudes towards your thing, or towards the thing that you talk about. That's what sets them apart as your ideal client.
Yes. I think that's a really good example of that. Or I hope this is good, but a very simple example of that, I think, is, for example, if your ideal client, like, let's talk about our example actually. So obviously, other than high ticket coaches and consultants, right, in that scope, now we're talking about psychographic elements.
Yes.
if rather than starting from demographics, can be easy to be like, oh, they're all parents, for example, right? And then we go, no, psychographically, we are going for people who are achievers. And it's like, okay, that's the first thing. But then really, and that's where a lot of us start. We're like, yeah, high achieving coaches and consultants, high ticket coaches and consultants.
Yes.
There's a lot of those people.
Yes.
There's a lot of people in that industry just happen to have that quality, right? But it's really about psychographically, they want that, they are high driven and high, sort of achievers by nature, but they are starting to really want to do it from a place of like, whether it just started or they're very close to it, where they're bringing ease back into their life, and they don't want to be grinding all the time, and they want freedom, and they want to just, have a more relaxing experience towards that. So I think that they're not afraid of hard work, but that's what they're aiming for, which is why our content and our messaging really resonates with them about, it's actually about being able to ultimately free yourself from that, right? But still get the result.
Yes.
So they want to work smarter and harder. So a lot of people who are really into the work, harder than everyone else, outwork everyone else, they're going to walk past this bridge. It's not going to be for them. And that's so okay.
Yeah.
Right. But then because even when they're first starting out, they're doing it with the intention eventually. And then it just so happens the reason why for a lot of them is because they have families and all of that. And demographically, they may have those similarities. But it's almost like starting from the psychographic rather than the demographic is the difference, I think, for us.
And actually, you raise a really good point, because even as you were talking about that, I was like, oh, this is like such a another light bulb moment for me, because when we talk about demographics, right, we go like, oh yeah, we're targeting someone with 3 kids, let's just say, for example, right? And so demographically, but when we talk about psychographic, it's like, what is their thoughts, feelings, attitude, approach to even that demographic thing, so to those having those 3 kids, because there will be people who have 3 kids and they kind of don't really care, right? They'll hire nannies or whatever to just, do the looking after so that they can focus on what it is that they want to focus on.
Yes.
Whereas psychographically, we want them to be family focused. We want them to care about wanting to spend time with their kids, etc., because that's why they're trying to create this freedom.
Yes.
So does that make that kind of, for me, really, I was like, oh wow, that makes sense, because demographically, again, these 2 people, they both have 3 kids.
Yes.
But it's really their approach, their thoughts, their thinking, their behavior, their attitude towards that particular situation. That is what sets them apart.
Yeah.
That determines whether they're on your bridge or they're off your bridge.
Exactly. I love that.
Yeah. So thank you for raising that, because that actually got me thinking about that particular example.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's great. So now we're like, okay, we know that to be on our bridge, they have to psychographically fit into, this one, your ideal client, high ticket client. But then how does that help us actually create content? Right?
What does it mean?
So that's what we're going to talk about now, because really what you want to be doing is, if you think about that bridge, that's almost like also your framework, what you actually teach helps people go from point A to point B, right? Which means that as you go through your framework, there is level 1, level 2, level 3, all the way up to level 10 and then to promised land. Like your framework actually fits across that bridge.
Yes.
And so how I want you to think about creating a content is, because you want to speak to a level 10 client, so you're actually going to create content around your level 10 frameworks of your framework, your level 10 components of your big framework.
Yes.
Your ultimate framework. Does that make sense? and then you might be like, because trust me, I went through all these same struggles where I'm like, but that means that I'm not talking about all the other things.
Yeah, all these other things. Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
And that's okay. That's okay. Okay, so this is how I think about it. So the thing is that, okay, there's kind of 2 approaches to this. So I'm going to try, if I remember, to cover both. Because I always go down one path and I completely forget what my other point was. Okay, so the first point that I want to make is, I spoke about before that a lot of content out there is talking to a level 1 client. And when you talk to a level 1 client, you actually repel everyone level 2 to level 10.
Yes.
Right? Because they're like, well, I know this stuff already, you're not relevant for me. Whereas when you talk to the level 10 client, you're actually also talking to your level 1 to level 9, because again, psychographically, they're on that trajectory, right? They already empathize or feel the problems and the questions that the level 10 client has. It's just that they're a little bit further back in their journey, but that's okay, because they can already see that they're going to come up against these problems and these questions and they want to be thinking and talking to people at that higher level.
Yes.
Because they want to accelerate their journey from level 1 to level 10.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's one point that I wanted to make about why it's important to actually speak to level 10, because then at least you're actually speaking to everyone on the bridge rather than repelling the higher level people that actually you want to be attracting.
They're really so much closer to converting with you.
Exactly. And then the other point that I wanted to make is about your actual content. Okay, so I was like, how am I only going to speak to level 10 content in my framework? This is the thing about, and this is, when you start asking yourself almost the right questions, you start to solve them in the right way. I'm a big believer in that. You start to solve them in the right way. Is because now you can talk about things with a lot more specificity, which means that it cuts through to your ideal client a lot quicker and a lot simpler. And also a lot of it is about positioning and messaging, right? So you could actually, and I don't want to overcomplicate things unnecessarily on this podcast episode, but again, these are things that we ourselves are working through, but you could technically talk about something that is you would think is like a level 1 thing. So for example, we talk about niching. It's almost every episode I think we're talking about niching.
Our listeners are like, we get it, and we need to niche. Yeah.
And that's the thing, it's a very fundamental, almost level 1 content topic when you think about it.
And right? Starting a business should think about this.
Exactly. But it's how you position it. So if you were to talk about, you need to niche because you just started your business, level 1.
Yeah.
But if you actually think about how to message that in the right way for your level 10 client, because trust me, like all the foundations are things that your level 10 client should be doing anyway. They should be refreshing this. They should be updating this. As they, level up, they're going to have to, define their newer, maybe slightly broader niche, right? But it's still, ultimately, they're still niching because they're still talking to a particular person, and you can help them with that.
Yes.
And so this is how you can literally use the same components of your framework that is down at the level, let's call it level 1 to level 5 area, but just message it so that you're actually talking about that particular component in a level 10 way. Wow, was that confusing?
I don't think so. Well, I was following, but I guess I think the example would be really helpful to crystallize that, because I like what you were saying about, because we also don't want to be feeling like we're completely ignoring
or discarding.
Exactly. And that also, it's a really good reminder. Like I say, there's just so many foundational elements that live across the bridge. But I think, one example where we're thinking about, when you're first starting out a business, as a guide, you might be very much like, trust me, I've been there multiple times, save yourself the heartache, start with a really tight niche.
Yeah.
As you say, for some of our level 10 clients, even in some of our examples, our own example with our business, we kind of talked about, okay, you might have a situation where your level 10 clients actually have multiple businesses. So how can they make sure that they might have niched down for one, but hey, your second business is, you need to be just as, so now you're talking to someone who's got a portfolio potentially. But the other positioning for that would be like, okay, you know what niching down is, you're not a stranger to it, but now you're cycling, like you have a different version, you've either made a really big, decision because you are at that stage to pivot, or, something else has happened where you're actually cycling to a new phase of your business, right? Yeah. And that sort of terminology is very unique to that stage in people's business life. Again, like level 1, we were going, oh wow, imagine that. What must be nice to have that problem when you've been, you've already had a 6 or 7 figure business and now you're cycling, right? It's still very resonant for them because the principles are the same. But like you say, you're kind of really talking to them about the importance of that, and they resonate because they're not like, oh, this isn't a basic 101 thing. This person understands what this very unique position I'm in. Oh, it just, of course, niching down. Like, how did I forget that?
Yes.
And we've been through this process ourselves where we had to go back with our coach, and he was like, okay, the fundamentals. We've told this story so many times, and it's still so emotionally powerful. But we were like, oh, we teach this stuff, we know this stuff, and we haven't done it because we're now at this phase.
Yeah.
So I think that's right. It's just a rebrand of the same concept, but like you say, you're speaking very specifically to a level 10.
The secret really is to be in front of everyone on your bridge, right? That is like everyone from level 1 to level 10. And to do that, in order to do that, to be able to speak to all of them, you have to speak to your level 10 client. All right, that means their desires, their problems, their fears, their questions, because your level 1 or your level 5 client hearing all that can still see themselves in those same desires and problems and fears and questions, because they are the same person ultimately. Okay, I want you guys to understand that they are the same person. But if you only talk to your level 1 client, you will automatically exclude everyone else on that bridge. So please, no more basic content.
Say no to basic content.
Say no to basic content, okay? Because it's just not relevant to your people, to your high ticket audience, okay? This is the thing. If you want to attract, convert, and retain your high ticket audience, your dreamiest clients, you need to start implementing the content bridge. The comments if you learned something new from this video and what that is. And if you want to hear the full story behind how I stumbled upon this little known secret, then listen to episode 4 of the Grow My Podcast show. I'm going to leave the link for that below. Video out if you want to learn about the 4 tips-based content honey traps to compel your audience to listen to your podcast show. And this one, if you want to learn about the secret hack to use social media to grow your podcast audience.